All right, the audio archives. Episode 2, Scott Van Rixel. Certainly focus on ingenuity and inspiration. Find out that Scott was a chef and a chef for the Kennedys. Had a friendship with John Jr. And we even get a special appearance by his 3-year-old daughter. So enjoy the show. Okay, so we've got the Scott Van Rixel from Bhang Chocolates, Bhang Enterprises, Bhang. What are we calling it these days, Scott?
Bhang Corporation.
There we go, because you're doing more than chocolates.
Yeah.
So I would describe you as a if someone were to ask me, I would say that Scott Van Rixel, if I'm just to describe him in 2 words, kinetic entrepreneur. How would you describe yourself?
I would probably agree with that, but I'd also probably say, kinetic is an always moving concept, and while I will agree that I and our company are always moving, sometimes I find pet projects that keep me kind of moving, but just in a circle on that spot, and then when that one's ready, I move on to the next one. But whether it's a gift or a curse, sometimes I will have a little bit of ostrich syndrome. Bright, shiny new projects sometimes kind of distract me from things, but that's also been why we've been able to find some cool diamonds in the rough, is because I was willing to stop and smell the roses on things along the way.
That's it. That's exactly right. And you're old enough to know that it's both a blessing and a curse. You know that it's both, right?
Yeah, and I think that if you're too focused on specific projects, you miss out on those little opportunities. And I think that if you are too easily distracted, sometimes you end up too many pots on the stove as a chef, and things get neglected, forgotten, burned, or otherwise. And it's been a bit of a balancing act, because the industry does move so quick, and there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of new projects, a lot of new opportunities. We have not just new products that we're trying to move forward, but also new states, new countries, new opportunities, new modifications of old projects, and the balancing act of recreational versus medical. And I think that all those things together are what just keep me very, very, very busy, and my partner's busy. Certainly our lawyers.
Yeah, exactly. No, but you are definitely a busy guy, and you mentioned the fact that you're a chef. I want to kind of maybe start there. That might kind of shed some light onto who you are and to how you got into chocolates to begin with, at least. But chef de cuisine, where did you study to be a chef? Let's just start right there.
Well, it started out with the fact that I really love to cook, but the original first time in the kitchen, aside from being with mom or dad or grandma or grandpa or things like that, was that I had allergies, and mowing lawns and stuff like that. Our mom and dad encouraged us to start working when we were able to start working, and my mom and dad and my dad and my grandfather really instilled a fantastic work ethic in my brothers and myself. And so the day after my 12th birthday, which was what you were, as long as your grades were right in Wisconsin, you could get a part-time job, and it had very restrictive hours and what you could do and so on and so forth. Well, mowing lawns was not really a good plan for me, because I had bad allergies as a kid, and mowing lawns in the summer was just a terrible idea.
Right.
So I liked working in a kitchen, so I thought, I'll go get a job in a kitchen. Well, my first job was at a place that did Friday night fish fries. It was the American Serbian Memorial Hall, which everybody called it Serb Hall, but they did big fish fries and fish boils on Friday nights. Right. And that was my first foray into kitchens, and it was, long story short, my dad would make me strip down up to my skivvies before I could come in the house, because I would just be foul rank of just fish fry smell. But I loved it, and I you know, if you can get through that with a smile and look forward to every weekend doing that, it's probably a pretty good telling sign that you're, you know, feasible to do kitchen work. And you know, I would bug the chefs to let me do more, and you know, and more and more and more, and then slowly I worked my way up, and you know, it was clear that I really not only enjoyed it, but I had a knack and a talent for it. You know, I was creative and artistic, and that's an important part of being a good chef. But I loved food, and I was not afraid to try stuff. I wasn't afraid of, you know, hot oils, hot pans, hot fire, hot grills, and whirling dangerous kitchen equipment didn't bother me any. So it was what I did, and whether it chose me or I chose it, that's how I ended up where I was at.
Got it. So we got a good work ethic to begin with. Add a little bit of creativity in the kitchen. Add some fearlessness, and you've got yourself a good chef. Is that basically it?
Yeah, and you got to be able to give up every Friday and Saturday night. You know, I wasn't a real popular social kid, so not going out Fridays and Saturday nights and working didn't bother me too much, and I enjoyed doing it. And I got along with people older than me, and I certainly was the youngest in the kitchen, youngest in the restaurant, and
Right.
You know, the older chefs appreciated that I wanted to learn and was willing to work, and you know, it made moving up in the ranks very quickly very feasible. Whereas, you know, if it was sit down and peel a bucket of potatoes, I was like, fine, but can I sit at the end of the line so that I can watch what you guys
Right.
are doing? And
I'll do this shit work, but just please let me watch.
or yeah, and teach me. And they really, you know, embrace that, you know, something called turning vegetables, which is or tornadoing vegetables, however you want to put it, but it's shaping a vegetable to have some particular shape. And potatoes and carrots are usually cut. It's a 7-sided, kind of a football shape.
Sure.
Your hands are raw by the end of the night doing, you know, buckets of these things. And I would sit down and do buckets of them, only to have them dumped into a pot and turned into mashed potatoes. Because it wasn't about doing them; it was about learning how to do them. And the only way you can do them effectively, efficiently, and consistently is by doing a shit ton of them.
Right.
So.
And that didn't bother you.
No, and you know, I certainly got plenty of burns and scars, and probably some of them a little bit intentional from chefs to teach me that you don't ever grab a pan in a kitchen without a towel.
Right.
And you know, that kind of stuff probably now OSHA would frown upon, but you know, that's how it was. And I was very blessed. I worked under nothing but top level French, German, Italian chefs the whole time. I mean, I never worked under anything but a European my entire career. And that was a huge blessing.
And you mentioned your grandparents, your dad, and your mom as far as instilling that work ethic. And then you also mentioned the Serbian Hall. Is Van Rixel Serbian? Is that what the
No, I was just no, I'm Dutch.
Dutch, yeah, okay.
Yeah, but her last name is Dutch. It was just a place close to me that needed dishwashers, and worked with my school schedule because it was, you know, Friday night, so it was on the weekend, so you could work late and not worry about having to get up for, you know, school the next day.
Got it.
And
who was most responsible for that work ethic? If mom and dad were both bought in, and grandparents, who do you think, if you could credit one person as the worker, you know, as make sure you get this done, who was that? Was that grandpa, grandma? Who was it?
Well, I mean, you know, the most direct influence would be, you know, a boy's father in my case, right. But I know that work ethic came from my grandfather because, you know, I spent a lot of time with my grandfather too, and, you know, my grandfather and my dad, I mean, my grandfather works up until a couple of years ago because he really enjoyed it, even if it was just tinkering with all the old folks in the neighborhood, you know, fixing,
right.
fixing whatever, handyman stuff.
So that, again, that personality definitely drives through the generations as far as the Van Rixels, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, nothing's free in life, and if you want success, you got to go and work for it. And my dad and my mom put a lot of emphasis on education, and my mom and dad sacrificed to put myself and my three brothers through, private grade school, private high school, and college as they would be able to help as we got older.
Right.
And my brother and I went to a Jesuit school, and then the other two brothers went to a private school in Milwaukee. But I can tell you, as a parent looking back, those tuitions were, they could have been paying to put us through college,
right?
Already at that point for high school,
right?
And my parents kind of gave up on that bigger house out in the country so that they could have all their boys get the absolute best education, and I appreciate that even more so now.
Right.
And in hindsight, I wish maybe I would have taken more appreciation and advantage of it when I was there. But I also took a lot away from that Jesuit high school, just being a better man, being a better person for community, a better person for business. I mean, Marquette was a very much focused business school, and
right.
There was teachers in there who were fantastic mentors, and even the level of coaching just for athletics was above and beyond what you would get even at some of the best colleges.
What did you play? What sports did you play?
I did track, I did football, I wrestled. My high school was absolute top level athletes.
Right.
And I was I was never first stringer. Oh, track I did spectacular. I was a fantastic long jumper.
Oh, great.
That was about the extent of my high level athleticism in high school. The guys that went to my high school for football were, a good portion of them were going to, D1 high school or college athletics.
Right.
You could name 15 or 20 pros that came out of my high school in the last decade alone.
Got it. Name one football player, if you would, just to give us context.
Well, basketball, Damon Key, you'll remember. He played for Marquette.
Sure. He's a guard,
when
right?
I was a freshman.
Yeah.
I can't remember where he went to play for pro. But a lot of pro baseball players. Actually, Rick Breitich's son played. He was the baseball coach, and his son ended up playing pro. And now I think his son is the GM for the Brewers.
Look at that. And you did say you're from Wisconsin, correct?
Yeah, I grew up in Milwaukee. Yep.
All right. And you are a Brewers fan, am I right?
I am in fact a Brewers fan. Not quite to the extent of my brothers. Watching baseball on TV would not be. I would do it with my brothers because it was a brotherly fun thing to do, and I love going to baseball games.
Sure.
But if somebody asked me anything about baseball standings,
yeah,
I wouldn't pay attention, and to sit and watch a baseball game on TV completely.
Well, having said that, though, you're certainly familiar with Robin Yount and Harvey's Wallbangers, though, right? From the early 80s?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And actually, my brother, Jeff, has Robin Yount's baseball cap from his last game.
What?
And not only does he have the hat, but he's got a picture from the Milwaukee Journal of Robin Yount with his hand extended and my brother in the crowd catching the hat.
Well, how is this possible? First off, so it's his last game that he played, and then he's got the documented proof of the hat? How is that possible?
He came home with the hat, and the other two brothers are like, "Oh, you're so full of crap." And he's like, "No, look, his name, look, it had kind of the reddish of the dirt of the field,
right?
And it had his number inside." And we were all like, "Yeah, whatever, Jeff." And the next day, Milwaukee Journal, their front page was Robin Yount tossing his hat in the crowd, and there's my brother catching the hat. And I was like, "Oh wow, probably should get that in glass."
That's crazy. But wait, you said he came back to the other brothers. Am I counting? Are there at least 4 brothers?
Yeah, there is 4. Yeah, I have 3 brothers. There's 4
Okay.
boys total. Yep, no
Where
sisters.
do you fit? Where do you fit in there?
Oldest.
Okay. And so there's Scott, and then how do we go down?
My brother Jeff, my brother
Yeah.
Tim, and my brother Dave.
And Jeff is the one with the Robin Yount hat.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Okay. I'm glad that we covered that.
Yeah. and my brother Tim and I were our business partners in our original chocolate and gelato place in Albuquerque.
Uh-huh.
And then the brother between us is an educator.
His name is Dave, Scott.
Oh no, the youngest one is Dave.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Jeff
So
is
Jim.
in between. Yeah,
Right.
Jeff is in between Tim and I.
I got it.
And Jeff's an educator and principal, and then my youngest brother David is in entertainment, and he does DJing for events and lights for events and decorations and like event coordination and things like that. So
All that.
all of us do. Well, 2 of us do similar stuff, but the other ones are doing different things, and you know, the difference in brothers all coming out of the same household, out from underneath the same parents, is, you know, the youngest and oldest are very, very much alike. The
Right.
middle 2 are very much alike, but the number 4 and number 2 ended up in business together, and so the one who had the toughest time through school is now the one with multiple masters and is in charge of education for, you know, hundreds of kids and a principal, and so you know it all
It's
very
that-
unpredictable from a young age, but you know, I'm really proud of all of my brothers, and I love my brothers very much, and you know, we don't always get along, we don't always see eye to eye, we have, you know, had issues over the years, but
Sure.
you know, we all have kids now, which is fun.
Yeah.
I don't, you know, obviously don't get to see everybody as much as I'd like to, but you know, my mom went from 4 boys to 1 grandson to 3 granddaughters and 2 grandsons. She had this onslaught of granddaughters, so my mom is absolutely thrilled that she's
Now she
finally
is.
she's
Yeah.
finally got her girls.
Finally. And I will say, just real quick on your brother that's the educator, that's fantastic to hear that the guy that had trouble in school is the one that's in charge of education, you know, at least for a community, because you know that what he's doing is trying to help as much as possible those kids in that
Yeah,
community.
and
So that's
he wasn't
fantastic.
he wasn't behavioral trouble. He was just the
No.
one that, you know, he really had to work hard
Right.
to do well in school, and it's not because he's dumb. He just, you know, some people, education, the way that we educate kids is not right, and the way that we educated, or the system was set up, didn't work with the way that my brother wanted to learn or needed to learn, which I think is why he's such a good teacher and principal. He's principal now, but is because he understood and has compassion for the need for the system to have variable ways to work with variable kids. And I think that's probably why he's so successful as a principal now, is because he can have that empathy and that compassion to know that, okay, this way works for some kids, but we need to have other systems of teaching for the other way that some kids learn.
Yeah.
And I was just a resilient jackass of a student. I just, you know, I just, you know, I
mentioned
didn't get
kinetic,
along with any of the educational system.
right. But I mentioned kinetic entrepreneur at the beginning. Now you mentioned resilient jackass. I love this, you know.
Yeah.
But you brought up Albuquerque, New Mexico. You know, for the first business, that, you know, the chocolate business. How do you go from Milwaukee to Albuquerque? Dot that line for us.
Oh, so, well, I went from Milwaukee to a whole lot of, I actually was down here in Miami,
Mm-hmm.
I was the chef for the Kennedy family out in Hyannis Port, and then also here in Miami for a while.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah, so I
then
have to stop you. I'm sorry for interrupting,
oh,
Scott. I'm going to have to stop you there. We've got to talk about you as the chef for the Kennedys. Are you serious?
yeah, so I was here in Miami, young chef. A friend of mine had a catering company that we did a lot of stuff for artists here on the beach,
Right.
and I was also a chef at a restaurant. But the restaurant was only open on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights, and we did caterings the rest of the week, and did a lot of stuff for artists. And one of the artists was Romero Brito, and his media person was Elena Shriver, who's Anthony Shriver's wife.
Right.
And Anthony's mother, Eunice, was at one of the events and really liked it and asked if I would come and do Easter brunch for them at their house, or at Anthony's house.
Oh my God.
So they really liked that, and then I came back to Milwaukee for the summer because it's
Right.
just hot and miserable in Florida in the summer. And my mom goes, "There's a phone call for you," and I said, "Who is it?" She said, "It's Sergeant Shriver." And I said, "Who?" And she goes, "Sergeant Shriver is calling for you." And at first it didn't click in my head, and then he came on and said, "Hey, my wife really liked the way you did our Easter, and I was really happy, and we were wondering if you'd like to come out to be the chef out at the compound in Hyannis Port for the summer."
Right.
And I was like, "Okay, that sounds like a blast." So, and it was. I mean, it was a lot of fun, and at first it was kind of the awe of meeting everybody and just being in that. And then they're just regular people that have had extraordinary opportunities and have been able to have extraordinary sadness and extraordinary success and extraordinary experiences, and it was just a real blessing to get to be able to share that. And I got to be close with John Jr., and I have to tell you that I probably will never vote Democrat, but I would have absolutely voted for him. That even as big of a loss as his father was to the United States,
Right.
I think the loss of John never getting to run for president, and I don't know if he ever would, but I truly in my heart believe he would have.
Yeah, it felt like he was gonna. Yeah.
He would have made a remarkable president. He was compassionate enough to appeal to Democrats and smart enough to appeal to Republicans.
Right.
And I think that he was a genuinely good human being, and being around their family, just on a side note, really gave me a different perspective of tabloids. That John was a really good person, and just the way that he was treated on a daily basis, and actually was on there was an Inquirer where he and I were walking. We had gone diving together,
Right.
and I was carrying my scuba tank next to him, and I was handing him my tank, but it looked like we were holding hands.
Uh-huh.
And the rumor was that was going to go out, that I was his date for the day or something obnoxious like that. It never made it to press, and that was all those kind of things just made it fun. And then to be able to cook dinner and be able to do, lobster boils and oyster bakes right down on the beach, and just be part of their family and part of their interactions, and see that everybody's just, they're people, and it gave me a different perspective of just kind of those experiences, and cooking gave me a lot of those experiences, and that's something I'll always be very appreciative of.
Absolutely, and you said it changed your perception. What do you mean by that? The family being regular people, or what do you mean?
Well, we all walk through the line at the grocery store, and whether or not we admit it, we all glance at the tabloids.
Right.
And we all either feel better that their lives are all messed up, or shame on them for doing XYZ or getting caught or XYZ, and
Right.
situations that I knew how the truth was because I was there and how they were presented in the tabloid it really, being famous is not always what it's cracked up to be, and especially in a position that they were in where, he wasn't out looking for, celebrityhood like a Kardashian.
Right.
He just was born into it, and he had no choice in the matter.
Well, you've got a pretty high profile yourself in the cannabis industry, and are you using some of the lessons learned from being with the Kennedys to kind of manage the way that you manage yourself?
Well, I'm trying to keep out of the news as much as possible because that's not always a good thing. But
Right.
one thing I will definitely take away is John was very humble, and I'm very appreciative of the success of Bang. I'm very appreciative of the opportunities that we've been given. I'm conscious of trying to be humble and show humility in public. And I may be gregarious and charismatic about our company and what we do, but very rarely will anyone ever in public be able to say that I've been boastful or bragging of our company. I'm very appreciative of what we have, and I try to be as helpful with as many companies as we can.
Right.
I try to have a good relationship with our competitors.
Right.
There's always that belief that Tripp and I don't get along.
Right.
And that's just flat out not true. I mean, I have an enormous respect for Tripp. I don't agree with everything he does, just like he doesn't agree with what I do. But
Right.
we got two different companies. We have two different ways of doing things. That's why events where he and I are talking together, people attend those because we're both on the same path, but we have a little bit different approach, a little bit different personality, a little bit different charisma about things. And I think that's why people enjoy hearing he and I speak, particularly together, is because we're a good balance of those things, but still having the same goal of topic.
Totally. And that's we're carrying that through. You guys are back-to-back episodes, just so you know.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. So Albuquerque, New Mexico, you start up a chocolate company with your brother, and then what happens?
We did gelato also, and the way this all came about, and I'll give you the real quick, was part of the year our gelato had a little bit of almost a dusty texture. Now you can get ice crystals which are noticeable, and you can get sugar crystals which are noticeable. They feel gritty, but this was almost the feeling after you drink dry wine.
Okay.
And so part of the year, our gelato, you'd have that right as you kind of finished letting it melt in your mouth, you'd get that dry texture. And I couldn't figure out what it is. I talked to a bunch of buddies in the industry. I talked to what it is. I talked to the old Italians who had learned how to make gelato. Nobody could figure it out.
Right.
So I called a large ice cream producer and said, I got a little company. Do you have a chemist there? He may tell me to go jump in the lake, but I thought I'd at least try.
Sure.
I said, well, I don't know what it is, but I know a guy that probably would. The problem is he doesn't pick up the phone for less than $25,000. And I was like, I don't have that kind of money. But being, an impetuous, persistent kid, I was like, screw it, I'll call this guy. I'll convince him to talk to me. So I called him up, and I said, a very gentlemanly Tennessee draw man comes on the phone, and I explained my predicament and, tell him that I do chocolate and this and that. He said, well, my wife likes chocolate. He goes, I'll make you a deal. Send me over your formula, pack up some of your gelato with dry ice, send it out to me, and pack up a bunch of chocolate. And if my wife likes your chocolate, I'll see what I can do. And I thought, okay, that sounds like a fair gamble, considering the alternative, which is not fixed or a $25,000 lighter checking account. So sent it out to him. After a couple of days, he called me back. He said, I know what your problem is. I said, what's your problem? And he said, you're using good milk. And I said, well, isn't that a good thing? And he said, well, my guess is that I told him we get our milk from this organic guy that's all free range cows and right by the Rio Grande and so on and so forth. Well, in the spring, coincidentally, is when we would have problems. The Rio Grande would flood out, and get a area of soil by this guy's farm, and the grass would grow very, very, very richly because of all the nutrients coming down the Rio Grande from up in the mountains. From the
So it's
rain.
real good milk is what it is.
So what real good milk has a lot of lactose, and what we were getting was, because of the way you make gelato is with very low air, very low sugar, very low fat, very high protein, but the thing that's along with protein is lactose.
Right.
So we were getting lactose crystallization. So he and I kind of, his wife loved the chocolate. One day while we were talking on a Friday afternoon, mid-sentence, it was clear that he had either taken a hit off a joint or a hit off a pipe.
Fine.
Now this guy's got multiple PhDs. He sounded very, very educated. He had a good personality, nice guy. But I said, oh, it sounds like you're enjoying some of that nice Northern Cali tobacco. Now, I said it in jest, and his response was, you're absolutely right.
Uh-huh.
I thought, oh, that's interesting. We never had any drug conversations, and this guy just told me he's smoking dope. Fantastic. So his next question is, oh, you ever put any in chocolate? And I said, well, we're in New Mexico, and there's a lot of celebrities come through, and we've certainly had requests to spice up chocolate for people.
Right.
And we've always had the rule that you've got to, you can bring us stuff, we'll make it, and we'll give it back to you. And that was kind of the rule.
Right.
And hold on one second.
It's just proof that you're a father is what's happening. That's
fine.
Oh, this is great. I think that we should probably leave this in.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'm right here.
Probably a very good problem. I think his daughter
You have to be
4
quiet,
years
though.
old
You have to be
because
quiet.
I think she's about the same
Okay.
age as my niece.
Okay.
So that's your daughter who's 3 or 4, correct?
Yeah, she turns 3 in a couple days. Sorry,
Okay.
she was upset because she knew I was in here, but she couldn't see me. So
Right. Yeah. No, that's a big problem.
yeah, sorry. So the conversation progressed, and he said, "Well, why don't you come out to California and see I got a little project going that I'd like to show you."
Right.
So I had never been to Oakland, and I thought, well, all right, okay. So hopped on a plane, drove out there, hopped on a plane, picked me up at the airport, handed me the biggest joint I've ever seen. It was called a tarantula. Apparently you roll a joint, cover it in hash oil, and then roll it in some more
Papers.
more flour.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
it looks like a tarantula, but so 3 puffs of that, and it was the short drive from the airport to the building he was taking me. By the time I got there, I was out of it.
Right.
And proceeded to take me into a big warehouse. At that point, a paranoia was setting in, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get killed, or I don't know what's going on here. And showed me, what I viewed as a giant grow. I had never seen so many lights, so many plants. I mean, the closest thing I ever saw was, somebody had a light in a closet with a plant.
Right.
And now I'm looking at, huge commercial level grow.
Right.
And no, not anything. And you never would believe that a bank stamp could be such an interesting thing for a child.
Indeed.
Wow, yeah. So, sorry.
No, that's fine. She's 3. It makes sense.
Well, part of the best gift out of all of the cannabis industry was getting to be a dad. Not that.
That's it.
They were totally related. Yes,
That's it.
yes.
No, and you mentioned the similarity between you and Tripp is that you guys are dads. You have that in common, and obviously.
Yeah, I think
Obviously
his
huge.
are a little older, and he got his as a result, or he had his, I think, before he got into the industry. I got mine after, which is probably a little different
Yeah.
dynamic. I think his are a little older too.
Got it. So you're looking at this big grow, this kind of warehouse
and,
grow,
and,
right?
And I said, wow, this is crazy. You know, by this time the cannabis is in full effect, terrifying as it is, and I just am like, wow, this is awesome. So he's like, well, what I want to show you isn't here. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's more.
Yeah.
So he drove me to a whole bunch of dispensaries in Oakland, and got me little, backdoor tours of the places.
Right.
And he came from the food industry. He was, did development and testing for Nestle and, big ice cream companies, big food companies. And he started showing me these edibles, and I very quickly realized that I didn't have to do anything more than what I was already doing to compete with big companies at Whole Foods. If I bring
Right.
that game to the cannabis industry,
Right.
we're going to have a successful project. So I said, yeah, I'd like to do something. I got back on the plane because I was only there for like 2 days. Got
Right.
back on the plane, did my little business plan, and I had just invested a bunch of money with my brother into our company, so I didn't have a lot of liquidity. So I came up with a little business plan. He told me that he was going to introduce me to a couple people that might be able to help out with some startup seed money, and came up with a brand, came up with a design, came up with everything I could. Was back out there 3 weeks later with my business plan in hand. They set me up to meet with who is now my partner, a friend of mine, or now he's my friend now. He became my partner then.
Right.
And kind of thumbed through my business plan and kind of looked up at me. He's like, yeah, I'll look at this later. He's like, so what do we need to get going? Because he knew that if I was able to compete at the level that we were able to compete with big, very well-funded chocolate companies in the general marketplace, meaning like Whole Foods and Dean and DeLuca,
Right.
that we could do very well in the cannabis space, because it would stand out so much from what was there, which was, Ziploc bags, maybe a label, maybe some branding,
Right.
maybe a little something here, a little something there, but for the most part, just maybe good products, but certainly not packaged or branded or labeled in a good way.
You got it. And then what year was this that we're talking about? I mean, when
fall of 2010.
Okay, good.
So I started out with a little piece of chocolate equipment that I brought from my old factory,
Right.
and started making chocolate. We kind of had our public release of products at the Inchy show at the Cow Palace in the fall of 2010.
Right.
And half the people thought I was a cop, and the other half thought that I was crazy, and both halves were, looking at me going, now there's cannabis in here?
Right.
Because our packaging was just so different than what people were used to seeing.
How similar is it to what it is now?
Oh, now our contribution to the industry was that I really think that we've mandated that the bar get raised.
Right. Right. And what is the etymology of Bhang? B-H-A-N-G. What's the etymology there?
It's Sanskrit, Eastern Indian. It's the Sanskrit word for the leaf and stem of the plant, versus gahan, which, as you can tell, that word evolved into ganja, but gahan is the flower.
Got it.
In India, the flower is almost exclusively used for either making hash or smoking the flower, versus the leaves are what are used for making like bang lassi and some of the other kind of edible style products. So that's where the name Bang came from.
Excellent. All right, so that's California 2010. Take us through, 2010, 2011, 2012, and then even up to 2013. Leaving out the last 2 years, what were those first few years like?
Well, we were. I mean, it was a scene. I mean, I had never done anything criminal. I had no experience dealing with marijuana marketplace. I had no experience with, never been in a dispensary, and my partner was instrumental in being my Yoda to get my cannabis Jedi, lightsaber. Because I would have been either arrested,
right,
or robbed, dead. If it hadn't been for him, that would have been a very short, gold mining expedition out to San Francisco.
Got it. So
I was completely out of my depth. But I was a good salesperson. Right. I wasn't easily intimidated or made uncomfortable. We certainly had to do some experimenting to figure out how much cannabis to put in, which I can tell you that was, a whole book in itself.
Sure.
But once we got it right, and I don't think right is a definitive term. I think right for the moment means that you know what you're doing now, and you also know that you need to keep evolving. But
indeed.
And once people kind of caught on to what we were doing, it was a nightmare because of the growth.
Right.
It was trying to scramble around. That was before we had our own, developed resources for trim and extraction, and I was spending my days out trying to find oil, and then spending my afternoons trying to sell the chocolate and my nights making the chocolate.
Not bad.
And it was tough. I mean, it was really tough. Not from a trying to make ends meet, but just trying to keep up. Because once the ball got rolling, it was expeditious, and then we made our push into Los Angeles, and that was just moving that much chocolate from Northern California to Southern California was stressful. And again, I hadn't been involved in the cannabis enterprise or wasn't a previous illegal distributor.
Right.
And, there was a lot of days where I was driving around with oil in my vehicle that I was just really uncomfortable, thinking, if I get pulled over, I'm going to prison forever. I am not the stature that is going to handle prison well. And thinking, is this worth this? Is this worth this? And it got more and more comfortable. And then the letters went out, and it got real uncomfortable again.
Right.
And I also found out that, I was going to be a dad, and I got very close to saying, I got to step away from this, because it was getting to be, we were too big, and
yeah,
I was nervous, and so one of our distributors at the time stepped up and said he wanted to be our licensee for California, and encouraged us to, handle more of the IP, which allowed us to start spreading our wings into other states and working that, the licensee program.
Right.
And, it's still stressful. It's still in the back of my head. I still have, we do not bleed our licensees because they're doing the heavy lifting. They're taking the risk, and
sure,
we take a small piece for our royalty to help build the brand, and we try to give them, a lot of support for that.
Right.
We don't have any licensees that are failing. We don't have any licensees that are looking to get out of being our licensees. All of them are asking for more states because they really like working with us, and they really like, how we treat them, and we really like the fairness of the economics of the situation.
Sure.
And because of that, we've been able to be the most expansive brand on the planet right now.
So you've got licensees in California. Where else? Please rattle off the states, rattle off the countries. You kind of mentioned that early on.
Producing, let's say that licensed and producing at the moment are, I'll include Colorado because the kitchen is reopening in
Okay.
But Colorado, Arizona, Michigan, New Mexico, California, Washington will be up and running in about a month.
That's Washington State.
Yeah, Washington State.
Yeah.
Nevada, the kitchen is under construction right now. Illinois, the kitchen is under construction right now. Let's see what else is under construction.
Did you say Canada?
Well, Canada is licensed. There is a kitchen already, but Canadian law does not allow for the sale of concentrates at the moment, so we are awaiting and we're confident of the outcome of the lawsuit.
Yeah.
There's a lawsuit between Health Canada and the patients of Canada that we're confident will allow for concentrates and edibles. So that's ready to rock and roll. They're just waiting for the okay from the government to do so. We just Illinois, they just got licenses issued, so they're doing construction.
Sure.
We've got several other states that are already licensed, and they're either awaiting approvals for plans, or they are waiting for their licenses.
What about other countries? What give us a sense of kind of global footprint?
We have Uruguay.
Yep.
And we have 2 European projects that are right now they're going forward, but they may end up coordinating with Uruguay because Uruguay allows for export and those other countries allow for import.
Right.
So, the cost of manufacturing and growing in Uruguay is going to be substantially lower than most other countries.
Right.
And yes, they hold on a second.
That's fine. Uruguay being the only country that is legal, both medical and rec, nationwide, but you do have to be in Uruguay. There is export, there is no import as far as the law states right now.
Yeah, and what's interesting is they say you have to be a resident, but you can get a temporary resident permit, which you have to say that you're planning on staying for more than 90 days, and then you're allowed to get a temporary resident permit, which is kind of like in California getting a medical recommendation.
Right.
The rules say X, but they've certainly facilitated trying to help people who would like to have access to it. And I think that'll become more lax because I think they're going to do it right and they're not rushing into things.
Right.
And I think that they'll be very successful, and I think that Uruguay will be a very good roadmap for the rest of South America.
Sure, absolutely. So, and I know that that your wife is, I think, from South America, right?
Say it again?
Your wife is from South America, right?
Central America. Yeah, from Central. She's from Guatemala. Yep.
Guatemala. Okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, as far as last questions, I've got 2 last questions, and they are 2 different things, but they are the same words. And by that I mean, what has most surprised you? So, what has most surprised you in cannabis? That's the first question.
Okay.
And the second question is, what has most surprised you in life? So take cannabis first. What has most surprised you along your path from 2010 to now?
I'm going to answer that I'm going to give you 2 different answers.
Yeah.
And one, I hope people really hear my answer the right way.
Okay.
I'm surprised that people still feel the need to market cannabis using, sex and half-painted young girls at trade shows, and I just, I wouldn't have agreed to that before, but I am disgusted by it as the father of a young girl now. And
Right.
that's something that both Trip and I have been adamant about as professionals and as, you know, business people.
Right.
There's no reason for it. We don't need to do it. Let the alcohol swine do that. I mean, perfect. And obviously, they think that kind of garbage is okay. I mean, look at Bud Light. Just the other day, they ran a campaign that said,
Right. Yeah.
"Get rid of the no for the night." Like that's somebody has to have lost their job for that. That's so horrible.
Totally. And it's yeah, it's over. So, but yes,
so
agreed.
That's the first thing that I'm still surprised about is that, you know, there's such advances in our industry about the professionalism of products and the professionals coming into the industry, but yet there's still the need to market and sell using that. It's, you know.
All right.
I made the joke the other day. It's a female plant. It deserves more respect than we give its female human counterpart. So
that's amazing. That's amazing. I love that phrase. I'm using that. If you don't mind, I'll carry that forward.
No problem. The second thing that surprises me is, and maybe it's not so much a surprise, but I'm surprised by how fast it's happening.
Yeah.
Is the growth, the new ideas coming in. I mean, we get a lot of new, you know, ideas, concepts, projects. You know, people come to us and want us to help them with them or make them part of Bhang. I'm just, from a sheer awe, there are some really, really cool ideas that are just finding their way into the market, or people who have ideas who are getting just comfortable enough to kind of expose it to the cannabis world.
Right.
And I think that's really surprising, but not surprising, more a surprise of excitement rather than a surprise of like, oh, I can't believe that's actually happening.
I got you.
The other question being, you know, what surprised me most in life?
Yeah.
I think how much, you know, whether it's because I only had brothers or, you know, because this is my first child, or the fact that it's a little girl, I think that has been a gigantic change. And I think any dad would say that.
Yeah.
But it's been, you know, it's and I'm curious by the time she's old enough to understand like what the market will be like, to how to explain that to her of, you know, what I do and my feelings towards it as it's going to apply to her.
Right.
And you know, my business partner, he's got a 16-year-old daughter, and none of his kids have any idea that he's involved in the industry.
Right. And
you know, we were talking the other night that he thinks there's definitely going to be some backlash.
Sure.
From him, because, you know, either you're lying to us, Dad, or you're telling us that we shouldn't do this, or shouldn't have it, or shouldn't be part of it. You're not keeping it.
Yeah.
And but I got a long time before I'm gonna need to have that, you know, conversation with my daughter.
Yeah.
But her friends' parents. I mean, I've already had to have that conversation with my daughter's friends' parents, and
right.
Some of those conversations have not been altogether pleasant or comfortable. But it
right.
is what it is. I mean, I'm not going to stop doing this because one of my kids' parents doesn't like what I do.
Right.
That's your problem.
Because Jasmine's mommy is pissed.
Okay. Jasmine's mommy thinks, you know, you're a drug dealer, and you know, yet when her or one of her family members is suffering through chemo, she's going to be the first one knocking at the door.
That's it. And
so
we didn't talk.
It's hard to be not indignant when someone is so just closed-minded to. Yes, it is a recreational product, but it also has an enormous medical benefit to a lot of people.
Yeah, I was just going to say we didn't talk about it in this conversation, you know, and I hope we have you back.
We'll have lots of them.
Exactly. And, you know, we are with other people, though. We've already brought it up. Cannabis as medicine, it's a serious thing. We're going to be talking a lot about that. But I will say one last thing as far as you and your daughter, and when you do have that conversation, no matter what, she's definitely got to be proud of you, because you're definitely blazing a trail, and you were there at the beginning, and you're doing real big things. So she'll definitely be proud of you once she gets to know what you've been doing all these years.
Yeah, and going back to that first thing about the kind of, I know that no matter how old she is, she will never come in and say or feel like I used her or any other woman's unique, beautiful traits to market what we do. It's just, that's one thing that I know I will never have to have my daughter be upset with me is that I misused her or any other woman's womanhood.
Right.
Or beauty as a woman, or intelligence of a woman, to sell our products. I mean, we've got some really smart, strong women. You know, we're very supportive of We Grow. I really think that's a wonderful, fantastic thing. Our New York licensee is it's an all-women's team.
Awesome.
Which we're really happy about. A bunch of really smart, sharp women, whether they're botanists or they're attorneys or they're business women. We're really excited to have a all women's owned licensee, and I think they're actually going to be putting in their application as a wholly minority owned applicant, which I'm really excited to be part of and support that. But you know, We Grow is a great thing for young up and coming entrepreneurs, particularly women entrepreneurs. Not just in the cannabis field, but all-encompassing. Right. So we're very supportive of that, because that is a group that women have. It's been the boys' club, and I like knowing not only for my daughter's future, but for current women, that there's something that is there to support, help, advise, teach, and improve that equality in the marketplace.
And I think you're talking about Women Grow, right?
Yeah, but I'm sorry. I keep their logo. When it's drawn out, not We Grow, the Grow Shop, but Women Grow. I always say
there we go,
because when the email comes in, it's initial. Sorry.
Yeah, no, not a problem. And we're gonna have Jane on, so we appreciate everything that she's doing as well. You're talking about it, and you've got your daughter being the most surprising thing that's happened to you, and I love the phrase, and we'll end with it. It's a female plant. It deserves respect.
Well, and that we shouldn't be disrespecting other females.
Yeah.
To sell a female plant, it's bad.
Makes no sense. That's it. Listen, Scott, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I'm sure we'll do this again if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime.
All right. We'll see you down the line.
All right. Thanks, Al.
Told you there was a special appearance. So, interesting guy. I mean, with each of these, what I'm finding is that we're only really scratching the surface. So hopefully we'll have a couple of these folks back a couple times. But Scott Van Rixel, definitely an interesting person. Hopefully that came through. And, hope you enjoyed it. And see you down the line.